Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you. This session marks our first Spark session of the new year and also the final session during the proposal submission round. First of all, I'd like to sincerely thank each and every contestant who has joined with us today. Your enthusiasm and commitment are truly appreciated, and we'll be announcing the results of the proposal submission round very soon. Today's session is an awareness session on the Sustainable Development Goals. By the end of this session, you'll have a much clearer understanding of how your ideas and solution can be aligned with SDGs to create meaningful, real-world impact. To guide us through this session, we are pleased to have with us Ms.Nadeeka Amarasinghe, Assistant Director at the Sustainable Development Council of Sri Lanka. We warmly welcome her and are grateful for her time and expertise. So, without further ado, let's get started. Ms. Nadika, over to you.
Thank you, Nipuna, and good morning to you all. I think you can hear me well.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I must thank to the organizing team to invite this to the Sustainable Development Council to deliver this kind of discussion that, as you mentioned, it is very important for your future activities that you are planning to do. So let me share my screen first. Can you see the screen?
Yes, madam.
Okay, I will switch off my camera a little bit because of the continuity of the connectivity. So let's begin with that SDGs. Before that, I need to give some background information to give this description, because we all know about the development actually, because we are experiencing some of the development activities in our day-to-day life. But how we can define the sustainability angle of that development is the matter that we need to discuss very detailed in your holiday. Especially today is a 4-day, but we have to schedule this session because of that time lagging behind, that we have planned to conduct this session in the December, but unfortunately we had the very difficult time to conduct that session. That is also, you can see that development we had at the past time also, but the difference is that how we can define the sustainability of that development. So although we have a development models, that the issue is that how we can address that development model to the challenges that we are facing with that development. So that's why I take that example. As we plan to conduct that session, but we had the difficulties and the challenges to conduct that session because of that disaster. So because of that challenges that we face because of the development. So that is the linkages that I need to make before going to the talking about the sustainability. So I took 2 examples that you may heard about these 2 examples or not, but you can understand how this is relevant to our discussion. One incident, that Bhopal disaster in 1984, that was the worst industrial incident in history, with thousands of people dying immediately. And the second one is that very similar situation, Chernobyl disaster in 1996. It also still considered as one of the worst nuclear reactor disaster in history. So these are development-related tragedies that highlight the unsustainability of certain approaches. So even today, we can see number of examples such kind of because of the development focus, but we are not much focusing on the sustainability of that practices. So we have to face similar kind of number of challenges because of that without considering the sustainability aspects when we are doing the development activities. So again, I put one of the other picture that you can see the two different scenarios in the same picture. How you can define this? Can you give some answers from the audience? What you can understand within this picture? Can you talk someone? But what do you see? What you can see in this picture? Specifically, you can see the differentiate because in one side you can see some of the shanties and slums all over there, and the other side of the picture that there are high-rise apartment and within that high-rise apartment, tennis court, swimming pool, and everything there. You can see the difference. I mean that inequality within the same location that we can experience even within the Colombo also we can see some kind of similar situation in here also. So you can see that how inequality is existing within this picture. In the real ground also we can identify this kind of similarities because the slum and shanties in one side, another side there are number of high luxury high-rise apartment with that all the facilities. So that is the development that we are experiencing today without considering some of the sustainability aspects. So again, I took one of the figures that I need to show that severity of global poverty. Although these figures are somewhat outdated, they're still relevant to illustrate the broader picture of the poverty. And you can see more than 1.3 billion people live in extreme poverty, and over 800 million people worldwide do not have enough food to eat. And more than 750 million people lack of adequate clean drinking water. And again, approximately 1.6 billion people live without electricity. So this is the context that we can understand globally how poverty is existing. These numbers clearly show how unbalanced the global development and how it is create problem in various ways. It can be hunger, it can be create some of the lack of electricity, lack of water, lack of sanitation. So in various ways it can be effect for the life of the people. So you can see that although we are talking about the sustainable development goals today, it's a long journey and it has a long history because the discussion on the sustainable development did not begin recently. It has a very, very long history. It dates back to 1972. You may heard about the Stockholm Conference on Environment and Development, and where it's the first identified point that unsustainable practices and harmful environment practices was discussed. Later in 2000, you may have heard about the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, before the Sustainable Development Goals that globally people are working for the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. It also again to address some of the development challenges at that time faced, specifically health, education, for some of the relevant contexts that at that time the world faced. But after that, in 2012, there was a Rio Plus 20 summit, and finally, in 2015, the the discussion about the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development was adopted as a globally people agreed to implement this kind of principles to development to do in a more sustainable manner. So today, now we are at the midpoint of the implementation of this agenda because we have introduced the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, but we have to achieve that SDGs by 2030. So we are now in 2025. So we are at the midpoint of the implementation stage. So you can see that the development agenda set in 2015 with the agreement of 193 UN member states. All the UN member countries agreed to implement this development agenda within their countries, as like Sri Lanka also part of that discussion. So it was introduced 17 SDG goals that we are talking about today, and it has 169 targets to how we are achieving these SDGs. It can be like a measuring tool. And in addition, there are 247 indicators to measure the level of implementation of or the achievement of each SDGs. So the deadline means we have set a target to achieve in 2030 all these SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals cover a wide range of areas. You can see in the right side of the screen. What are those goals? We are talking about poverty eradication and the ending hunger, good health and education, water and sanitation, energy, and the working environment. There we need to have a decent work environment in our working life. And also we need to have a good industry innovations and inequality and cities and communities, responsible consumption. We are today talking much about the climate change and the protection of the coastal resources. And again, we are talking about the care of the earth, and we need to have a peace and justice. And finally, we need to have a partnership to achieve these all development goals. So this is a very vast area. We are covering each SDGs, and it provides kind of a development mechanism or the development guidance to arrange all the development activities in a sustainable manner. You can see that we are dividing all the SDGs in the different way, that categorizing into 3 segments, like because sustainable development or the sustainability is about the 3 dimensions of balancing environment, social and economic aspects. When we are talking about environment, it focuses on the responsibly consuming the existing natural resources in a proportion where they are able to restore themselves for the use of the future generation. And again, when we are talking about the economic dimension, it focuses on practices that support longer term economic growth without negatively impacting social and environment aspects of a particular country or the community. Again, when we are talking about the social dimension, it focuses on mainly the people, but social sustainability ensure universal human rights and the quality of life of every individual of indefinite time. So you can see that we cannot talk about the sustainability by considering only one aspect, because you may see that most of the development activities are focusing on the economic development. But if we are only focused on the economic development, it can be neglected the social and environmental dimensions. So there can be unsustainable because of that, because If we are only focused on the economic dimension or the economic development, there can be some of the negative impact for the environment and the negative impact for the social aspect. So that's why we are talking about sustainability, the balancing between these three aspects. Again, the sustainable development goals can be categorized into 5 key areas, we are known as the 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. So the entire framework is built 5 key principles. Again, one of the principle is that universality, because the SDGs are applicable for all countries without considering their level of development, because developing countries and the developed countries also can implement or the use as a development tool to guide their development in a sustainable manner. And any country can use this development planning tool, these development goals as a development tool. Another key principle is integration, which emphasizes the interconnectedness of economic, social, environmental dimensions of the development. And the framework is also about the inclusive. That means that it considers all segments of the society, including vulnerable communities, marginalized communities, and it not allow to no one left behind, because all are inclusive. It should be addressed the all aspect, all segment of the society. The vulnerable communities, poor communities, rich communities, all are considering within this development context. Finally, that the successful implementation of this framework required multi-stakeholder partnership, because without the partnership we cannot implement this development agenda, because there should be some government involvement of the government and the private sector, civil society, and the academia, especially like you, because students and the academia in the universities and these researchers especially, and the local community, because all have a responsibility to implement this development agenda, because each of us have a role to play within this development framework. So therefore, it has a principle to multi-stakeholder partnership. And again, there are kind of two myths that people believe in when we are talking about the normally general public, that they are thinking that, even you may also have thinking about that the sustainable development is about it is environment sustainability or the environment. It is talking about environment, but keep in mind that sustainable development is not only about the environment sustainability. As I earlier explained, it's about the three dimensions. It should be balance between economic, environment, and social aspects, because we cannot talk about the environment sustainability only, because we have to think about other aspects as well. And again, there one of the other myths that people believe that SDGs are UN agenda. As I explained, you've seen that all the UN member countries, 193 countries, agreed to adopt and implement this development framework within their countries. And again, when they are preparing this development goals or the agenda, all the member countries have their inputs to arrange this kind of framework. So we cannot say this is a UN agenda, because we also part of this discussion and we also contributed to develop this kind of framework, and we are accepted to implement this development frame within our countries. Each of the UN member countries has agreed to implement this development agenda within their countries. So these are two myths that we need to understand. This is not true, because sustainable development is about the three dimension sustainable development. We are talking about environment, social, and economic dimension. It is not only about the environment sustainability, and again, it is not the UN agenda, because we also a part of that discussion, and we also have contributed to develop this framework. And when we are coming to the Sri Lankan situation, you can see that we have we also implement we are trying to implement the SDGs within Sri Lanka with establishment of Sustainable Development Council, because you have invited to Sustainable Development Council to deliver this particular information. So as a role of Sustainable Development Council, we are willing to support you in any time. So because Sustainable Development Act passed in Parliament 2017 and provided some legal framework to implement SDGs within Sri Lanka. So that is the legal background that we have enacted. And Sustainable Development Council has established as a nodal government agency or the institute to with the responsibility for coordinating, facilitating, monitoring, evaluating, and reporting on the implementation of all these 17 SDGs within Sri Lanka. So we have, as a Sustainable Development Council, we have a big role to coordinate each and every organization, even the local community, and to facilitate this kind of program, providing some of the knowledge sharing sessions and some of the facilitation for the knowledge gap, and the monitoring what is the level of achievement of SDGs within the country. We have a monitoring mechanism, and the evaluation, because we need to reporting the SDG progress as a country. So we have a reporting mechanism. So all these responsibilities are with the Sustainable Development Council to implement all these 17 SDGs within Sri Lanka. You can see that SDG progress, because as I mentioned earlier, that there are 17 SDGs, and we have ranked every SDGs, what is the level of achievement and what is the progress actually we have achieved so far. You can see this is last year progress. Last year mean 2024, because we are updating the 2024 one these days, and we very recently we can issue that results also. This shows that progress in each goal, most of the goal shows the progressive trend, but the progress is not adequate. You can see that when we are making a line in between 2015 and 2030, 2024, some of the goals are reaching the margin, but some of the goals are not adequate level, although they have shown a progress. And again, some of the goals are regressing, especially like economic growth, and the SDG 14 about the coastal and marine resources. So again, you can see some of the two SDGs, like SDG 7 and SDG 13 about the climate change and energy. So these both goals reaching some of the level of progress than the other goals. But especially when we are talking about the SDG 13, the climate action, although we have shown the progress, you may think that we are facing number of climate disasters recently. So especially when we are analyzing on the progress of that SDG 13, particularly they are looking at the level of implementation of the policies that are related to the climate change. So as a country, Sri Lanka has number of climate change related policies and the implementation plans. The practical situation is a bit different, but we have some of the progress in the developing and introducing some of climate change related act, and the some of the tools like policies and the climate change related establishment we have. So because of that, we have achieved and shown progress in the climate change particularly. And again, you can see when we are going further detail, target level achievement, you can see how we are progressing each SDG target. You can see that green indicate the good progress and amber color indicate the some of the progress towards the achieving target. But red indicate the reverse trend and in the progress, and gray color indicate the target with no data available. So you can see what are the gaps in SDG targets in detail. Later you can study further. And then you can see how, as a country, we are ranking in the globally as the level of achievement in these SDGs. Sri Lanka ranked in 93rd place out of 167 countries. When compared over several years, there are both positive and negative because when we are taking the 2021 and 22, we have a good progress, but after that, you know that economic crisis and the COVID, some of the impact was severe. And again, we have to go back into 2023 and the 24 as them. We are going backward in some level, but overall and the regional average was high as the when we compare with the peer countries in the region, Asia Pacific region. We are maintaining the progress, but we cannot satisfied with that progress because there are many reasons for that, the COVID and the other economic challenges. And after that, as I mentioned, that we are in the midpoint of the implementation of this global framework. So the 23rd Global Sustainable Development Report they have published to understand where we are now and where we are heading and what need to be done to accelerate the progress of the next few years, and especially how can it be done. So this kind of documentation has published to understand what is the level of achievement and what we need to do in the future to accelerate the progress and how we can do it. Especially, they have analyzed that the financing gap, because when we are implementing such development framework, we need to have enough financing, adequate financing. But because of that, the crisis and the COVID, especially in the world context, the COVID situation has specially impact for the SDG achievement. You can see each of the government or the country, they have to decrease their they decrease their revenue because revenue generation sources have lacked, and also decreasing some of the capital flows and the decrease in remittance, especially when the flow of that the remittance also decreases. So because of these reasons, that financing gaps in 2022 in specifically in the developing countries has increased in 55%. So you can understand how the severity is worse and worse because of the financial gap, because we know that SDG implementation is not the simple task, but we need to have many resources to do that. Specifically, that as I mentioned that earlier, that we need to have a partnership, and each actors have a role to play, and we need to have enough resources to implement. So finance is mainly the major resource that we need to have implementation, but when the financing gap has increased, again, it impacts to the SDG implementation. So therefore, they have introduced some of the levers that to entry point to do the transformation. We understand that sustainable development goals, the achievement of sustainable development is not significantly the simple task. It's a difficult scenario. But because of that unexpected situation, it has to be worsened, and therefore we need to find some of the leverage or the solutions to transform our journey. So they have introduced some of the mechanisms, levers. The one is that governance. When we are changing the governance mechanism, this can be changed the level of achievement. And also again, we need to find some additional financing and economic resources. It's also one of the lever for the transformation. And again, we need to individually also we have to act, and collectively we have a big responsibility to work on this development framework. It is also another transformation mechanism. And also, especially like you have a very good understanding about science and technology. So science and technology and innovation has a big role to play to do the transformation in sustainability, and also capacity building like we are doing today, transferring some of the knowledge to how to do it. And when we are doing this kind of changes in through these levers, we can make changes in the human well-being and the capabilities and the economic and the health, nutrition, energy, and also urban and peri-urban development and the environmental conditions globally. So these are the some of the uh, we need to think about in a different way to achieve this uh, target in the transformative manner. Again, they have introduced to do that the S curve. You may know about this because especially this is very important to understand that when we are need to uh, promote the sustainability, we need to destabilize dominant unsustainable practices to allow the access to allow the accelerate the sustainable practices. When we are introducing new innovations based on the sustainable principles, we can destabilize the most unsustainable practices used in our day-to-day life. I will take one of the recent example that you may can remember, that very recently the special direction prohibiting traders from using polythene shopping bag free of charge for the consumer. You can you can remember very recently government has introduced that mechanism. Uh, they have prohibited to issuing that polythene bag free of charge. So when we are introducing this kind of sustainable practices, we need to have an alternative, because if we are uh, these we destabilize some dominant unsustainable practices, we need to introduce some of the sustainable practices at the same time. What kind of practices? Like introducing some of the alternative bags. It can be clothing, it can be some of the environment friendly material. So if we are not introducing alternative practices to destabilize some of the unsustainable practices, it is again a disaster. So the entire curve is describing that scenario. When we are introducing some of the sustainable practices, we need to destabilize some of the unsustainable practices at the same time. Without doing that, it not have a sustainable pathway. So I think you may understand what I'm saying. And now I'm trying to explain further the goal by goal, what are the implications that you can think about when we are doing some of the innovations to context in your competition. So you can understand what are the ways that you can contribute to the each SDGs through your knowledge and the research and some of the innovations. So first, I took that one goal. It's about no poverty. Your effort in different sectors is well aligned with the some of the innovations of this goal, because you can see I put some two examples here that new technology can help to understand or they ensure some of the equal right of the for all and improve access to basic services like the no poverty uh, can be we can address in a different way because last time when the disaster situation also we saw that how poverty is increasing because of that people don't have the access to some of the basic services. They don't have the access to water, they don't have access to food, so electricity, so such kind of thing. But when we are eliminating power, we need to have a sophisticated mechanism to address all the people's need, at least basic need, in a satisfied level. But if we don't have that capacity or the as a country, that poverty levels goes high. So that's why we need to have some of the new technology to address these barriers or the challenges to provide basic services to the people. How we can address some of the vulnerable communities' need, because you know that there can be uh, disability people and some of the marginalized community. How we can address those people's requirement with some of the new technology you can think about. And again, recent disaster, we learn a lot about climate disasters, how we impact for the our entire life because it's damaged the agricultural land, it's damaged the infrastructure. So because of that, it reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate related extreme events. So if we have a mechanism to inform them to in advance, like I put some one of the picture like Govimituru. It also application that Im, improve developed by the agriculture ministry with that some of the private companies to give some information in advance to the local people or the local farmer uh, some of the climate induced risk that in advance. But if we have a kind of mechanism to inform that community before the disaster or the some of the climate related matters, if we are going to face some of the dry season, the people can aware with that kind of technology and find some of the new technology to give some remedial mechanisms. So if you can introduce in your research or the some of the knowledge you can use introduce new technology to adapt this kind of approach, it directly impact to the reducing poverty. We are not thinking about we are always thinking about poverty is about financing, but again how we can create that ecosystem, that is the most important thing. We can create that ecosystem to introduce some of the new innovations and technologies that can be addressed some of the causes behind that. That is one example. And again, uh, we can adopt some science and technology to address the zero hunger, the second goal. It's about we need to have food security and the enough food and nutrition to sustain the people's life, and we need to have minimize the hunger. But how can we do that? There can be some value additional technologies that we can use to introduce nutritional food and ensure that food security. And again, we can have some kind of resilient agriculture practices even within our context because we know that we are talking about climate smart agriculture. If we don't have that kind of technology or the innovations, climate smart agriculture practices, we are very vulnerable to the food insecurity because last time we saw that uh, we all the agricultural land in the hill country has damaged without having that kind of climate smart agriculture practices. So how it affect for our food security? It's damage all the food supply chain. So if we have a climate smart agriculture practices, we are far thinking uh, to how to address this kind of climate induced disaster in advance. This can be minimized. The simple theory. So again, we can develop some of the genetic, we can protect the available genetic diversity, and again, we can introduce some of the different varieties of agriculture food items that are with high nutrition, high value addition of to the market. So, and the farmland, how can we double the productivity of the particular land? Because we know that the agricultural land availability is very minimal, but we need to think about how to double the agriculture productivity, so that practices also can be find a way through the science and technology. So if you are trying to do a research or the make some product or the innovation, you can think about how we can double the agriculture productivity and how we can value addition to the agriculture product, or the how to minimize the vulnerability of agriculture farmland, and how to build up the resilience of the agricultural land. So this kind of thing you can think when we are doing the research or the some of the innovations in your field in the future. So it's again the contribution to the SDGs, and these are the some of the mechanisms that we can progress the SDG implementation. And again, the very important thing is health sector. The third SDG goal, it's talk about the how we can ensure the health and well-being. So there are number of mechanisms that we can ensure the health. Research and development in the some of the medicines and the medical instrument we can develop to ensure that health and safety of the people, and especially health risk, because last time in the COVID period we experienced so many difficulties because we were not able to predict that risk of that COVID disaster. So they made so many complications. But if we have a technology or some of the new innovations to address these kind of health risk in the future, that is also contribution to the acceleration of the progress of the SDG 3 specifically, and we can ensure that health and well-being of the people of the planet. So again, education sector. It is very important because last time we experienced that we need some of the innovative job skills and the technical and vocational skills to address the demand of the future employment requirement, specifically in the private sector. So if we are trying to promote the decent job environment, so we need to have a sustainable way to find some of the decent job opportunities. To do that, we need to have a kind of set of skills, different set of skills. We can think about that, how we can improve or develop some of the skills that as a student or the university student, you are very near to open up for the job market. So how we can compete with the other competitors, and what are the job skills that you have when you compare with the others. So that is the major thing that you need to think. And also in the education sector, there are a lot of thinking about how we can ensure the equal access to each of the student or the participant to the learning process. Because last time in the COVID period, there are many online sessions and the online class modules were conducted, but some of the students, they don't have access to those. How we can ensure that equal access to all the student participation. We need to have a technology and science-based technological innovation, specifically like smart classroom. It can be online session that they can join with their home. So how we can improve, how we can address these kind of issues, specifically disability community, vulnerable community, indigenous people, and when we are developing some of the research or the innovations or the you are thinking about future, how we can address these kind of issues through your innovation, it is also contribution to the SDG 4 acceleration. Again, SDG 5 is talking about the gender equality. It is also again how we can ensure that gender equality and violence prevents environment for the girls and women. There are some of the examples I've taken here that the Colombo Municipal Council introduced last time, in parallel to the Women Day celebration, E-Diriya program. That is only operated within the Colombo metropolitan area, but some of the people have facing some of the challenges when they have facing violence. They can use this mechanism to report that incident to the local authority. And again, there are some of the telephone dedicated telephone line like 1929 for the children related violence reporting mechanism. So those kind of mechanisms also support to ensure that gender equality and violence against women and the children. So you also can think about how we can introduce some of the mechanisms or the research, how we can develop some of the innovative tools to address these kind of issues. These are also contribution to the SDG 5. Again, this is very important that water and sanitation and energy. You may heard that how we can use the water in efficient manner and how we can improve the water efficiency, because you know that water is a scarce resource, but we can introduce some of the technological innovations to improve the water efficiency and water treatment facilities. And also we can do some of research and technological improvement to the clean energy applications and modern energy services. So likewise, you can think about how we can contribute to the SDG 6 and 7 to using your knowledge that you have learned throughout the process of the entire university life to improve or introduce some of the technological and innovations to address these kind of problems, because we can see some of the issues in the society. So your knowledge can be utilized to address those issues in an innovative way to ensure and accelerate the SDG progress. And again, SDG 8, I have mentioned about that decent work and economic growth. How we can diversify and technological upgrade innovations in the productivity specifically. How we can improve the productivity, how we can diversify the economic activities, and how we can value addition for our labor services. So those kind of things we can think about again. And how we can improve the creativity and innovation through the policies, through the innovations, through the innovation. So likewise. And again, industry innovation, that is very relevant to you because the Maroto University is having a lot of industry innovation practices, and specifically how we can improve the environmentally sound technologies like clean energy, clean fuel, and some of the research can be done to encourage some of the good practices in the industries, and how to ensure the responsible consumption and production. So how to diversified and value addition can be incorporated into the industry processes. So these are some of the way that you can think about how to incorporate industry innovation practices with that your knowledge that you have taken from the university life, and some of the research and the innovations to improve the real life practice in the real world to address some of the challenges that the world is facing. And again, sustainable cities and community and the responsible consumption. Specifically, we are talking about SDG 11 and 12. How we can introduce some of the technology to ensure safety and sustainable cities, specifically what we can provide for the community to ensure their life is easy, because in the developed country there are so many applications like smart bus services, smart transportation, smart electricity. So like us, there are so many applications that the developed countries introduce to the city life or the urban life. But how we can address those kind of issues, those kind of things in Sri Lanka as well, you can think about. Um, Again, responsible consumption. It is about the you can develop some of the research to address those kind of things, because as I mentioned earlier, that example regarding that use of polythene bag. Although we have discouraged the use of polythene bag, are there enough alternatives to support or to industry to change their behavioral pattern, to change the use of other alternatives or the environment friendly product that address that issue? So you can think about this, because you have enough knowledge to address those kind of thing with that your knowledge. And uh, again, there are, as I earlier so mentioned, that early warning system, because we have a very bad experience regarding the climate change and the climate related induced disasters. So whether we have enough the early warning system to adapt this kind of situation, and again, how we can develop some of the research to protect the marine resources, and how we can utilize the marine resources ultimately to support our economy. So these are some of the things that you can think about, and also that how we can protect our environment through our knowledge and research innovations to get utilize the genetic resources. And the protection is about not only not using the environment, but we have to use the environment but without harming to that. So that is the major principle. So um, when you are developing some of the research or the innovations or the product, you can think about how we can address those challenges. We can address climate change, we can address the use of the marine resources without harming to the environment, and how we can use the environment product without harming to the environment. So those are the areas that you can think about in the future. Finally, we have so we talk about the lot of applications, but when we are applying those technological or the innovations, we need to have a resources. As I mentioned earlier, financial is the basic component. So other thing is that technological capacities that we don't have but other countries have. So partnership is very important for this kind of situation. When we don't have enough resources in the financially or the technologically, so we can uh, take that resources from the other partners, like other countries, other communities. Uh, Even the university, between university also, you can share some of the technology or the partnerships to address those kind of issues. So although we have knowledge, we may not have enough resources or the financial resource to implement those. So such kind of situation, you can talk into the private sector. So they will invest your research on the product. So that's kind of mechanism need to be there to build the partnership to accelerate the progress of the SDG implementation. So I think you may have some understanding about how within your context or the within your understanding to address those SDGs in the future development practices, because this is very important area. I am very interested to have a physical event, but unfortunately we have to have a virtual session because of that limited access to other students, like especially within the holiday period. But um, however, if you have gained some knowledge through this discussion, you can implement, you can apply those knowledge to your product or the development or the. I know that you are doing, you are planning to do a research in the future. So when you are doing this kind of research, you can apply those kind of practices in detail. So this is a kind of guidance to understand how these principles can apply into your context. So I think you may have get some understanding about that, and I will wind up the session in here. But if you have a kind of uh, problem or the question, I can answer for that one. And in the future also, if when we are practically doing some of the activities, you can talk to us, and we will guide you how to do it in a better way to align with this sustainable development goals. So thank you, and I'm very much appreciate if we have a question to answer for your questions. Thank you.
If you have any questions, please put those in the Zoom chat so we can see that.
Actually, most of the time we can see that most of the people are not interested to discuss this kind of topic, but in real life, actually, this is very important to understand this kind of principles of behind SDGs. Although we are talking about 17 SDGs, that there are so many inherent principles that we have as a nation in Sri Lanka specifically. You can understand a lot of sustainability principles we have had earlier also. So I think that understanding is very much important to work in real life. So if you have get some idea about these 17 SDGs, then you can apply those things in your real life, because you can change your behavior pattern, because you know that when we are asking to bring some the environment friendly bag to when you are doing shopping, so the people are reluctant to do that. But how individual, if we are act on those, the collectively we can make a big change as a globally world. So that understanding is very much important. So although you don't have a question or the comment in at that time, at this time, but you may have some of the help you may need to do in your practical situation, you can contact us in any time.
So it seems like we have no questions here. So with that, we have come to an end of today's session. So on behalf of this park branch, I would like to sincerely thank you, madam, for taking the time to conduct this insightful, meaningful awareness session with us. It was truly valuable and we learned a lot. I'd also like to thank you everyone who has joined us today and actively participated. We really appreciate your time and engagement. So once again, thank you all and have a wonderful day ahead.